Like, so, you know, I wasn't going here, but now I am because we wound up dipping to black. But I dipped to black because my career was laid out. I was at CNN. It was all going great, and then it ended because a show got canceled. And I was like, well, what am I doing? And I moved into a new production element and I loved it. I thrived. I didn't dip to black yet. It was like, okay, new opportunities. I wound up at BET. I loved it. It went great. But then when that contract ended, I had that moment at the beginning of 2024 when I decided I wanted to start pursuing YouTube and podcasting and creating my own content because I dipped to black. I mean, very much depressed and, emotional. And that moment finally hit me of like, what just happened? It was a delayed response because I had that job right away. But once that contract ended, it was just like, oh my gosh, what happened?
Mhm.
And, I had two spine surgeries following, and it was just like this crash, 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 hitting rock bottom. And then it's like, wait, nope, I didn't hit it yet. Still hitting. So it was a year. It's almost now like I'm coming out of the 2 years of, okay, what am I doing? And it was that decision that made me realize I'm basically living my control room experience. So we all have that dip to black moment. And I'm glad I could share that with you. I didn't anticipate to, but you kind of led me there with the moment of reminding me of CNNI. Honestly, like we covered so much war, so much horror, and those people are essentially dipping to black. And when you're the media face to put yourself out there, there's also moments when I'm sure you had this moment of like, I don't know what I'm doing. You're dipping to black and trying to reframe, refocus, get yourself together to make sure you sell your points.
Mhm.
And TEDx is a big stage, and you need to have big ideas for TEDx. So when you crafted your idea and you delivered it on stage, did your outcome, the anticipated outcome, happen following the talk? Or was it also that moment of like, and what? Like, so many people want the TED talk or the TEDx talk to lead to more, but sometimes it doesn't. So I'm curious, did you feel like it did? Did it elevate you as a leader?
You know, it's hard to say. It wasn't the dramatic moment that I expected. I mean, delivering the talk was for me very monumental and really meaningful, and I put my heart into it, even if I had next to no time to prepare because I just stepped out of an earthquake. And I think
Incredible.
that brought an authenticity to it as well, because I started with the story of the earthquake and what that felt like going through that experience, and what it felt like for me experiencing so many different crises around the world, and why that matters for everybody. Um, so, was it a radical life change? No, but I still get emails or comments from people saying, "Hey, I saw that talk that it's 10 years now. I saw that talk and it was really good." And I feel like what is important to me about that is it might not have been life transforming for me, but the few people who caught it and heard it and liked it, um, maybe maybe thought differently or did differently, or something changed in them. And I think in the end, that's important. It's about those tiny bits of feedback that you get, that in the end, are just as meaningful. It's about those microscopic changes that you make that you might not even see in your lifetime. How do you know? But what's also good for me is to know that even if I hear the talk, and I don't like to hear myself talk, like I don't go back and look at my videos and thing, never. But the content is evergreen, and that's not necessarily a good thing, because it talks about all the terrible things happening to women around the world, in this country and everywhere else. I would like for it to be obsolete. I'd like for it to be an outdated piece of an ugly history that we now no longer live in, but it's not at all. In fact, it's more relevant now than ever.
Just looking at your talk, your first one, 2015, had about 19,000 views, and it continues to grow. And the reason it continues to grow is because it's a very searchable headline and it's a topic of interest, right? So you then gave another TED talk. How many did you do? Two. I thought so. I just wasn't sure if I missed
10
one.
years
So
apart,
you had
almost to the
another one
day.
recently.
Yeah, I mean, they were 10 years apart almost to the day, which is kind of creepy and weird in a cosmic sense. For anyone who wants to read into that, they're welcome to. Um, yeah, and the second one, I keep saying these are sort of happy accidents, how they manifest. That one, Also, I loved and was I saw as the continuation of the first one. I was just, telling you the next chapter in the story. And, those for me, delivering both of those talks, again, deeply personal. I shared a story there about one specific woman in Afghanistan. And I would love for you to watch it and hear what you think. That really changed how I understand what progress is and what hope is and what moving forward looks like. And I remind myself of that moment all the time because sometimes we're dipped in black, we're stuck in black, right? I'm going to play with this metaphor forever. And you feel like you're never going to get out of that. Um, but those little tiny steps in the right direction, that's good. That's the momentum that you need, and that eventually is going to add up. And so those are the things I feel like, if we look at women's rights work as, have we achieved it? Yes or no? We're going to be devastated, disappointed because we're constantly faced with setbacks. So, if we take a long view and see, well, there has been progress, there is momentum, there are movements, there are more and more people every day who want to see change, and those changes are happening even if we don't see them. And sometimes we don't see them at all, but we can't discount them. And I think that's the message, really.
That's great. It's all about how you tell your story too and connect with the audience. And, in the TEDx format, you have to stay very still on that red dot. So it's which can be limiting for some people who are very animating. But it's also very, I think it kind of helps you become more confident in your posture and your stance and in your words being
Uh-huh.
on that red circle. I hope you're taking this advice from Lina and looking up her TED Talks because it could be eye opening to you as well as inspiring. So check those out. Handling nerves and your mindset before all these talks and conversations with the press can be tough. And so I also hope you'll circle back to what she was saying about talking to the media because there's definitely some points there that are worth reflecting on and really having a good headspace, knowing your talking points and being confident in what you're going to say before you're on camera. Confidence is really a buzzy word on this show. We're talking about it every episode. And, you are very confident on camera. But to me, it's because you have years of experience. Years. You can probably talk to anyone. But when someone's listening and they don't have your type of confidence or your assurance in who you are there any little pieces of advice that maybe they could try to focus on before they start showing up that might help them fine tune their message?
Think one bit of advice is to not cling too tightly to every single thing that you want to say. To really focus on what is the core takeaway, the big message, the bottom line, and then something that is actionable or something that really means something to you that you want. If there's one thing people are going to remember, let it be that one thing. I'll tell you a secret about my last TEDx is I had 100 things I wanted to say. And in part because I wanted to prepare and cram in all the stuff that I didn't say in 2015. Because so this was like 10 years of me building up all these important messages. And when I was up there delivering the talk, I realized at some point in the middle that I had forgotten to say some of the things I wanted to say. In the end, it was so unimportant because I went back to what was the real message, what was the core of the story. And it was centered around this woman and her own experience, so all of the other stuff that was in there that got dropped, adapted, morphed into something else, or I just had to wing it in the end matters so little because I was able to keep holding on to that golden thread of that one thing. So, the less clutter and stuff that you heap on yourself, the easier it's going to be. And remember your why, remember your why, right? You believe that, in my case, the world is better, healthier, safer when women have full rights and equality and freedom. Right. And everything goes back to that. And I can turn any argument into something that ends with, and there you go, because women have rights, the world is better. Um, and so I would say hang on to that one message and everything else. Don't be upset with yourself. Don't fumble, let it go.